Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone over on YouTube and everyone on Fanbase. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the show that I'm sure you guys have been waiting for, especially since it has been getting a lot of attention over the last couple of days. And I want to just bring you guys up to speed how I learned about the story. I saw a post on Isaac Hayes's Instagram page where there was a report of T.K. Peterson, one of the co-founders of the Gathering Spot, being terminated from his position. And immediately, uh, that raised a very big red flag for me because I know that TK is one half of the Gathering Spot that is co-founded by Ryan Wilson as well. So once I saw that post that Isaac made, I wanted to look further into the story. So, of course, my specialty is covering court cases, and this lawsuit uh, was brought to my attention through my sources, and then I had to go look at the lawsuit and pull the case. So today, what I'm doing is we broke the story yesterday on hiphopinquirer.com, and it's gotten a lot of attention, and there's been a lot of questions that have been raised. So what I want to do today is bring in some legal minds that their specialty is contracts as well as trial attorneys. And they've had an opportunity to look at the court documents over the last 24 hours. And we're just going to talk about this lawsuit and what does it mean to the Gathering Spot community, and I would say people of color at large, especially those who are supporting businesses that are started by us for us, like Fanbase, for example. Uh, let me bring on my co-host, Crystal Jennings. Hey, Crystal.
Hey, happy Sunday, Dennis.
Happy Sunday. Look at you over there. Look at you. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Crystal Joy Jennings is a celebrity publicist, journalist for she's with Rolling Out, but she's also been seen on uh, your daily shows, local television shows, and she's also a well known book author. And the name of your book, Crystal, is The
Dear
Alpha.
alpha female, it's not him, it's you. That's a whole nother conversation, but thank you so much, Dennis. I think I have been a part of the community, especially here in Atlanta, since 2005. And so that's why this story really impacted me personally because I've been a member of the Gathering Spot. And as you know, just a part of the community that really wants to have been more invested in supporting and conscious of supporting Black businesses and investing in Black businesses like Fanbase. I was a investor in Fanbase as well. But I think when we see things like this, it's discouraging to people. And so I think that's why it's so important to get the correct information out so people can understand, because over the last, I would say, especially since 2020, our community has been, I'm proud of us, the way we have really supported and uplifted each other when it comes to spending money with Black businesses, investing in Black owned businesses. And I think the situation with the Gathering Spot, which opened in 2016 here in Atlanta, so many of us were eager to be a part of something that was Black owned. So this is near and dear to a lot of our hearts.
Yes, and when the family feuds, we don't win. So we had to figure out what the heck is going on here.
Absolutely.
Um, and I posted on my Instagram that this is almost like watching the Titanic sink when you see someone that he wasn't only the chief financial officer. This man lifted boxes. He did everything. He was a bartender. He was he had the suite, whatever he had to do. He made sure everything was it was serving the community. And we all have our different Gathering Spot stories.
Right.
For example, I interviewed the late John Ecstasy from Houdini at the Gathering Spot.
Yeah.
It's just so many experiences. I brought my oldest daughter to the Gathering Spot to meet Cory Booker. And that was a very special moment because she likes Cory Booker. I didn't know that then. But we all have our special stories. From the Gathering Spot. And for me, it was about community networking, great Brussels sprouts because they did the Brussels sprouts was
The
hidden.
Brussels sprouts are my favorite, but I think it's important that we say up front before we start this conversation that the biggest, I'm a publicist by nature, and so the reason that people were connected to the Gathering Spot was really because of the partnership between these two young African American men that were trying to do something to impact their community in a great way. Ryan and TK, the face, not only the face, but also when you went to the Gathering Spot, they were there, they were welcoming, they were really involved, especially with the initial members, of being sure that you were happy with your membership and being sure that they were serving you in the way that you wanted to be served. And so I think that it's important that people understand that may not be familiar that myself and most of my colleagues that immediately signed up for memberships did it because we believed in these two young African American men that we were really proud of, and we're working so hard to create something that was impactful.
Because we have fan base, we are a fan base as well. I want to just tap on Isaac's shoulder because he's also an investor in the Gathering Spot. Isaac, can you tell the audience that's listening what does the Gathering Spot mean to you, and why did you become a part of it?
Okay, so I'm not an investor, but I am a founding member
Founding
of
member.
of the Atlanta location. Um, the Gathering Spot was important to me because it really created an opportunity for us to connect and build um, from a political, financial, business, communal, very organic way as Black people in a city that is constantly under um, the attack of those that want to kind of remove Black political leadership. And so it was a place where we could strategize and we felt comfortable being ourselves, very, very welcome. And it was an enormous, part of why I've been able to scale my business. I said this last night when we were on live, there would not be a fan base without the Gathering Spot. And that is because I met three amazing individuals, Barry Givens, Jewel Burks, and Justin Dawkins at the Gathering Spot, and they mentored me about the tech industry. And so without their knowledge and their friendship and their guidance, I would not have known what to do or even how to begin to build an app in the first place. And so that is because of Ryan and TK. And so they always have my support. They always will. I've let Ryan know personally, face to face, that the Gathering Spot is not the walls, it's not the furniture, it's not the food. It is him and TK. And so wherever they are, I am. And I will continue to support them no matter what.
Thank you, Isaac. Let me ask you another question because you own fan base. How important is it for you to pick the right partners or right people to go to bed with, so to speak, in business? And what are some of your concerns and or things that you look for when creating this type of partnerships? Because I'm sure you have partners in your business.
Well, I have investors in the company. A lot of people that are probably in this room right now are investors in fan base. Um, I'm a little different. And I say that because I come from a 20-year music industry background, and I jokingly always say there's nothing more grimy than the music business. So my antennas are always on. I'm always like, I always looking over my shoulder. I'm always like, whatever the document is, whatever the contracts are so important, and they're such a big part about the music business. So I always have my antennas on. So I just, I always am trying to protect my asset as best I can moving forward. But I don't think that um, in this situation that is really, relevant, because I think, um, Ryan and TK, we're scaling a business, a successful business, and we're in partnership with two other Black men who they deemed credible businessmen that can help them, continue to scale their business and continue to build a partnership. And so I would expect nothing other than people that are in the city of Atlanta that reach out from across the table to say, hey, let's partner and let's continue to scale our business, to have the best intentions in mind to do so. And so, that's what I can say about that.
And I always say the best foundation for any partnership is good contracts, the paperwork, the having the financial uh, resources, but also have the financial. You have your accountants and your attorneys to make sure that all deals are strong. And bef- before I bring on my next two guests, uh, I want to also acknowledge that I have Mr. Rick Mathis in the as well. So we have a third guest that's going to be joining us. But right now, I want to introduce attorney Brittany R Dobbins and attorney James L
Walker.
Walker. So we're going to bring Brittany up first and foremost. Hey, Brittany.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Uh,
Good.
uh, briefly, I want to just I have your whole bio here. I don't know if I should want to read the whole bio, but we did do a nice little intro. But Brittany is a top 40 under 40 attorneys out of Los Angeles, but she's in Georgia now, and her specialties is contracts, intellectual property. Uh, Brittany, you want to go on you know your resume better than I do.
Yeah, so caveat, I am not an Atlanta attorney. I moved here last year to take the Georgia bar. I am a licensed attorney in California. I focus my practice on entertainment law, primarily all areas of intellectual property, soft intellectual property. So trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, everything that involves businesses. I am Best Lawyers One to Watch for 2023 in intellectual property. And I am the National Black Lawyers member of National Black Lawyers Top 40 Under 40 in California. So nice to meet everybody. Thank you for having me. Hi, Crystal.
No.
And our other guest, attorney James L. Walker. I'm going to bring him up. And Crystal, I want you to introduce our second guest.
Okay. Well, James is a friend of mine, and I thought it would be great to have him be a part of this conversation because he's one of those lawyers that is in entertainment that people have gone to get out of bad contracts and bad deals. He's the managing partner of Walker and Associates, which is now based here in Atlanta, Georgia, but originally started in Connecticut. The many facets of his practice include tax, nonprofits, entertainment law, television contract litigation, business law, intellectual properties, and corporate law. He's represented some of the biggest names such as Jamie Foxx, Bill Duke, Bobby Jones, Hezekiah Walker, Dr. Jackie McCullough, and on and on and on. DMX, The Source, Black Elegance, and he also has been involved in contracts with BET, TB1, ABC, A&E Lifetime, and the list goes on and on. But James has a reputation, like I said, of being able to be an advocate for artists or companies that are in bad deals and being able to do that. And so I thought it would be great for him to join Brittany so that we were able to really give people the facts when it comes to this case and what the possibilities for us seeing the gathering spot return to its original state would be. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Good to be here, and congratulations, Brittany.
Thank you, James, for joining. So my first question is: you both had an opportunity to read the complaint, which was filed in Fulton County Superior Court, and I think Judge Cox would be the presiding judge in this case.
Yep.
Brittany, from looking at the initial complaint, can you just explain for those who don't know what type of lawsuit is this?
This is a breach of contract claim, as well as a claim for breach of the implied duty of good faith and fair dealing. So basically, in a nutshell, what we're looking at is when these two parties decided to come together and Greenwood took on the shares of the gathering spot, there were certain things that each party had to do. Ryan Wilson and TK and all of the other shareholders that they are representing basically are saying that they've fulfilled their requirements, but there are 3 distinct requirements that Greenwood did not fulfill. And that was they were supposed to do a financial assessment of the Los Angeles location, and they had until February 14th to do that. And that was never done.
2023.
Yes, 2023. Then they also had, after that financial assessment was done, if there were any adjustments that needed to be made to the books, those would need to be made. And then a payment of the reserve was supposed to be made to the shareholders by, I think it was 5 days later. So it would have fallen on February 20th, 2023. That payment was never made. So then shortly after February 27, 2023, a lawsuit was filed for breach of contract for them failing to do those 2 things. And they alleged there was an anticipatory breach, which is they were anticipating that Greenwood also would not pay a final payment that was due to them of $5 million as well. So those are the major claims. They're seeking attorney's fees as well. And there is language, although it's not an actual claim of the litigation, there is language that they were intending to look for intentional misrepresentations through discovery. So basically what that means is they were going to be looking for evidence that Greenwood intentionally lied to them when they entered into the deal. And if they were able to find that evidence, then they basically said they would amend the pleadings to alleged fraud as well.
Dennis, can we go back and kind of explain how this happened? Because we talked about, you and I and also Isaac talked about the importance of the gathering spot, but I don't know if we need to kind of explain the fact that the gathering spot was a network and work environment here in Atlanta, networking, work and social environment. And then that actually a few years ago, that entity was merged with Greenwood, which is a bank, right? And so,
are they a bank? Hold on, are they a bank?
Well, let me chime in here, guys. Let me chime in because we got to be careful when we're doing legal stuff like this. I do these cases all the time.
Yes.
You got to back up first and talk about what the agreement was. It was a purchase agreement.
Okay.
And it was a purchase agreement between the 14 shareholders, if you will, of the gathering spot led by Ryan Wilson and TK. And all of us love TK. Everybody knows TK. Everybody loves Ryan. So Ryan is kind of the lead plaintiff, if you will, as well as TK on behalf of the other 12. And what they're essentially saying is we had this successful company that built 12,000 members across the nation, LA, DC, Atlanta. We hooked up with Greenwood thinking we would partner and become the most powerful financial tech community for entrepreneurs, for community-based stuff, for Blacks in financial, Blacks in tech, in the technology space. And it was supposed to be a win-win. You got the West Coast, you got the South with Georgia, and you got the Northeastern with DC. Well, it fell apart because the agreement had 3 different types of payouts. It had cash, it had stock, and then it had what Attorney Brittany correctly alluded to. It had a post-closing statement where you do the financial statements, you determine the profitability, and usually you have some trigger language that says, okay, we're this profitable in LA, we're this profitable in DC, you're going to cut us a check of X millions amount. In the complaint, they don't mention cash at all. That's pretty clear. Nor do they include the entire purchase agreement. We're given section 2.7, we're given a section in number 10, part 10 of the contract. We have a few emails to show that they were telling the Greenwood team, hey, you got to pay us, you got to pay us. Are we getting a statement? But we have nothing to actually spell out what amount is due. I got to imagine it's millions. I got to imagine that it's millions at stake. And as Attorney Dobbins correctly pointed out, there was a payment due February 14th, 15th, 45 days after December 31st. And it was clear that wasn't coming. And then they filed
the earn-out payment?
Correct, the earn-out payment.
Okay. And
you see a bunch of emails in the complaint between TK and the CFO kind of saying, hey, do you have everything? Are we all set? Are we going to get this? And then all of a sudden they don't get it. And then we get this news this week, there's a new CFO. So correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but what I believe happened is TK and company notified them like, hey, you're in breach. And then Greenwood attempted to execute its new authority. Partner and said, well, we're going to put in place what we want to put in place. Probably never thinking these guys would have the chutzpah, if you will, for lack of a better word, to come after them like they did. And I applaud TK as well as Ryan for saying, nah, we may be under 40, but we're going to stand tall with y'all and we're going to bring it. I really applaud them for that, because clearly if you didn't pay them the money when it was due, and everybody in America knows the success of the gathering spot, clearly you have an issue here. And clearly these guys are, in my opinion, right to bring forth this suit. Excuse me for the long answer. I just want to make sure.
No, it's good. It's a very good answer. So fair disclosure, all the documents, there's some documents that are under seal. All the documents are not public. And I would think that there's several parts of the agreement that the purchase of the business, the business isn't, they might want to keep certain things under seal for right now. So we will have more documents, but the three documents that you guys have reviewed, it appears through the argument that they had like say there was an identification piece in there where if there was some type of issue, they could have addressed it a different way than holding the payment. Am I correct, Attorney Walker?
Oh, you're 100% correct. They filed the suit, I believe, on March 16th, Attorney Dobbins. And I think
it was filed February 27, 2020.
February 27th. So I would imagine under the agreement, they gave them notice first and some opportunity to cure. Usually you have a 5-day or 7-day window to cure, and sometimes 30 days before you can file. So I think they were trying to definitely get in place to do that. Now, this naming of a new CFO, to me, if I'm on the other side, just playing devil's advocate and representing Greenwood for a minute, they probably thought, well, we're going to get in front of this and just put our new people in and try to keep this going. But it doesn't work that way if the asset purchase agreement, and for your listeners, asset purchase agreement is just that. A company is buying your assets. Sometimes it's stock, sometimes it's just the assets, sometimes it's a combination of all of the above. And we do that work, and we also end up in a current litigation we're in right now having to fight people post-closing to get the seller to do what they promised to do. And that's essentially what TGS is saying here, the gathering spot. They're saying you signed on to do this. You signed on to make these payments. We delivered you 12,000 members and a very exciting, we call it a black country club almost, of a business operation for you or business interest, and you haven't done your part.
Now, I think this is a question that I'm sure a lot of the listeners on both Fanbase and on YouTube want to know. Because of these, it hasn't been fully adjudicated yet, but because of, if the judge finds in favor of the plaintiffs, is there opportunity for the plaintiffs to get their company back based on the breaches, and if they don't fulfill it, pay what's due? I mean,
I have an answer, but I want to hear from Attorney Dobbins. I think I've answered 2 or 3. Attorney Dobbins, I have my thoughts on it. I'll yield to you first.
Yeah, no problem. I actually looked they didn't seek that as one of the remedies in the initial complaint. Does that mean it's foreclosed? No, it doesn't. But benefits have other benefits. I'm assuming, again, I don't have the contract to read in full, but there are other benefits that most likely have been exchanged. These are just certain pieces of the agreement that have not been fulfilled. So I think, it will be definitely a conversation between the parties on what is going to happen with it. But there is always a possibility that they can get the company back. But it would require rescinding the entire agreement, which I don't necessarily foresee at this point with the facts that I have.
And let me add to your question, Brother Byron. If you are Greenwood and you've spent millions on this asset purchase deal, you have to be very careful here, because Ryan, TK, they can just snap a finger and that 12,000 membership could drop down to 5,000 or 2,000 very quickly. So if I'm the judge, a former attorney, he or she is probably going to ask them to go into mediation. And when they get in mediation, one of the conversations are going to be, can we get our company back? This hasn't worked. You know what? Don't worry about paying us. we'll just take our company back. We'll figure out a financial number that works for everybody. Let's just keep it moving. Because I don't see how you fix this. I don't see how you keep this marriage together. I think the damage in putting that white face out there as the new CFO to a company that's been celebrated so much in the African-American community, it's a death knell. I just don't see how you come out of this. Now, I understand Killer Mike and former Mayor Andrew Young and others are part of Greenwood, so I'm told. I don't know that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We haven't seen the contracts, their relationships yet.
But I haven't seen
their faces for it. We don't know what their actual roles, I guess, are. But we know that Killer Mike has been a big, I guess, ambassador, I'm sure. And it was, well, I'm on a call with lawyers, so I want to be real particular with my words. But we do know that both of them are listed on the site.
Well, I raise it for this reason. You haven't seen a statement from them, I don't believe, on social media from Andrew Young's camp or Killer Mike's camp. So if you're Greenwood, you have to really, really kind of walk very kind of trepid here. You got to be very careful because you could totally destroy the entire company. And if I were TK and Ryan, if that happens, just do it all over again. We know who you are. People love you. You got the ingredients. You do it all over again. The artist formerly known as The Gathering Spot.
Let me ask you this question, though, to both of you all, Attorney Dobbins and Walker. So what does that mean for because the Gathering Spot started here in Atlanta, but there is a location also in DC. I mean, so if they had to, start it all over again and do something different, would that also mean they would have to do the same things for those other, or is this just about Atlanta?
Well, it's one company. Mm-hmm. They didn't buy individual parts, to my understanding. They brought the entire brand, and it's all kind of synchronized with the same technology, the same membership. There's cross collateralization. Like if you go to the club here, you can go to the club in DC, I understand, and the club in LA. So I don't know how you break it apart and separate it. I think you would have to.
That was an initial deal anyway. So I don't see that as even possible. Why would they even concede to something like that when they don't have anything solid where they can say these guys are going to honor? They haven't even honored the $5 million payout. Right. And let's talk about the emergency motion that was filed. I don't know if Ms. Dobbins, you had an opportunity to read the emergency motion where they are still demanding the $5 million before we could talk about anything.
So I wanted to make a quick correction on that. The $5 million payout that was due in March. And that is the earnout payment. The payments that weren't made prior were specifically related to the Los Angeles location. And then to kind of add in on the ability to have one location here and one location there, not seeing the contract, we don't know what the business model is in terms of like if they're separate entities or not. However, there is kind of an inkling based on the fact that they were talking about a specific location in the pleadings or in the complaint in the papers that we read through, is that they're all one unit because the payments are sort of related to that. So that's just sort of deductive reasoning. We definitely don't know for sure, but I can say from an intellectual property standpoint, that name, The Gathering Spot, was part of the acquisition. So they definitely will not be able to use that going forward. But unless there's some sort of negotiation that's done, like it was mentioned earlier, mediation, the parties, if they have to come back to the table, if Greenwood sees that they're going to have a big financial loss and with this acquisition because of the bad publicity, anything can be negotiated on the back end.
Attorney Walker, I saw an answer. A response to the complaint where they spoke about the accounting system that was supposed to be used. TK, according to the lawsuit, was using the cash-based accounting system, where the Greenwood was requiring that they use the GAAP, which is General Accepted Accounting Principle, for the accounting. Now, it seems like it's a reach, but because this is the system that I'm going to assume that they've been using up to a certain point. Reading the documents, is there anything that you've read that would bolster the defendant's argument that because they did not use GAAP's accounting, that's a way out for them not having to make their scheduled payments.
I've seen that used in cases, and for your listeners, in layman terms, what you're essentially saying is we didn't pay you because you're not using the same equation or accounting standard that we normally use, and we've put you on notice as the principals of the company to follow our system, our ways, to get to that number that we both agree to. So is it arguable? Yeah. Can they make the case? They're going to pull in the top accountants in the country to say that for sure. Now,
and I read through some email communications that the Greenwood CFO in some communications with TK, he basically koshered everything looks good. He didn't make it. There was no issue. They didn't raise any issues through email communication. Correct. So it almost, and I'm not, again, we have to see what the discovery reveals, but it does appear that they're kind of reaching right now because they haven't addressed why didn't you make the payments on time, because there was the timeline that they were supposed to follow and to raise and I guess it's indemnification issues in the I guess the accounting, but they never raised it. How problematic would that be for the defendants?
I think it would be very problematic. If the emails that we all read, and I think Attorney Dobbins alluded to them earlier, they seem to say everything's a go. You have TK saying, are we going to get the payment? Are we all set? And the other guy's writing back. So based on those emails, now remember this too, I do a lot of litigation. Sometimes we only put in certain emails. Now, if they come forward with emails that say he wrote TK the next morning and said, hey, I'm sorry. I know yesterday I said everything was going to be a go, but we wanted you to go with generally accepted accounting principles, and you're going with cash basis, and we need to fix this before we can cut a check. If they bring forth that kind of evidence, then it kind of totally mitigates and destroys these emails that we've all seen. Attorney Brittany.
Well, I actually think we're past that point, because what we're viewing is the reply to the summary judgment. So they've already, Greenwood has already made their argument in terms of what they believe is true or is not true in terms of those particular papers. Now in the reply, Wilson and TK, they basically say, they're not saying that we did not agree that these were the dates, that these are the amounts of payments that should have been made. The linchpin, or sort of what everybody's kind of hanging their hat on, is this discrepancy in the accounting. Mm-hmm. And so, plaintiffs are saying that doesn't matter because you've known this since before we closed. So we provided you all of our accounting statements well before, we closed this deal. You had an opportunity to look at them. Nothing was said, and you proceeded with closing. Then move on past closing. We reached out with you. You told us that a new accountant was starting at that time. I communicated with that accountant. That accountant said no adjustments are needed, that you're okay for the LA payment. And then the date comes and it's not made. Then we're reaching out again, and, everything sort of derails from there. And so we're, no payments were made. Nothing else was done further to that. And they're trying to now argue that, well, we had a good faith basis to not make that payment because of the accounting standards and the difference in them. But it does look a little shady or not necessarily sincere because of the amount of time that went by for them to raise that type of issue. Now, I will say this to be fair and sort of be the devil's advocate. The fact that they had several different accountants coming in and out could, possibly relate to that sort of issue of them saying they didn't know, but it is kind of far-fetched in my opinion.
Let's talk about that good faith. Let's talk about I'm sorry, counsel. Let me say this. Let's talk about that good faith basis and what remedy that could have been applied to when they talk about, well, you still got to make the payments, but there's stock. You can subtract some of the stocks that are owed to TK and Ryan Wilson. That was an option. Counselor Walker?
No, you're right. That was an option, and you wonder why they didn't just honor it and pay them the $5 million. But here's where I wanted to go for a minute. I have to take issue with the documents as they were drafted, because there's been some scuttlebutt that one of the investors, I believe the brother is Paul Judge.
Judge. Mm-hmm.
So there's some discussion that they had concerns about him in the beginning. I've seen a lot of emails and conversations and posts about their concerns. So as a guy who drafts asset purchase agreement with the mindset of litigation, I would have to wonder in the full document, was there the thing that Crystal alluded to earlier that, hey, you miss a payment, we get our company back.
Mm-hmm.
That's how tight I would have drafted the paperwork. That if you know going in, you're dealing with a snake. We deal with record labels a lot of times. We deal with TV networks. I come in with contract language that says if you miss a payment, if you miss an advance, if you don't pay the royalties on time, there's like pass go, skip boardwalk, skip Park Place, straight pass go, and we take back our rights, our masters, and everything else. I just wonder who drafted these agreements. Because a lot of times when we're litigating, it's due to bad drafting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did read something. I don't know if both of you counsels caught that. It was some reference to both sides. Both counsels are sophisticated. Did you see that part in the
both parties are sophisticated? Yes, in the reply, the plaintiffs.
I thought that was pretty interesting because you're both parties are attorneys are very sophisticated, and the things that you guys are really arguing about, it could have pretty much been caught in the drafting of the agreement. Isaac Hayes, you're listening to our guests. Do you have any questions?
Well, I text you. There's a second lawsuit that was filed as well. If you can check your text messages, I think I mentioned this to you before, Dennis, that there is also a second lawsuit that goes a little deeper into things. I don't know if you can forward that to the attorneys, and I don't know if they have time to really go through it because it's. I
don't think I have time to review it. And they charge about an hour, and I'm not paying. You can be the fan base CEO.
Well, I want to thank Brother Hayes because Brother Hayes was the first one to bring this to my attention.
Mine as well. Yeah.
I saw his post. I couldn't believe it.
Well, yeah.
So I want to look at that second lawsuit as well.
I texted to you. And you can probably forward it to counsel.
Okay, I'm gonna send that to him now. 1 second, but I don't think they have time to read it.
Can you explain? Can you give us a little just a short explanation of what it is, Isaac?
Well, Isaac's not an attorney. I don't know if you want to take a crack at that.
From what I was told, and this is not, correct. From what I was told, is there was also some payments made to two of the owners of Greenwood, like large payments, I guess large bonuses that were pretty substantial, and I think there was a lawsuit filed because they paid themselves large bonuses. Look through that lawsuit though.
I'm sending it to them right now.
That is, yeah. Look through that to see if what it was, but it looks like they might have paid themselves some large bonuses.
Crystal, I sent it to you. Forward to Attorney Walker, Attorney Dobbins. I sent it to you as well. That's interesting. So that's very. Isaac? Do you know the amounts of the payments that they had paid out to themselves?
No, I do not. I do not know. All I know is that through 2 rounds of funding, Greenwood has raised a total of $89 million.
Wow.
And so to me, that's the only thing that gives me pause as a person that's just, in business. If I've raised $89 million, what's $5 million? What's $6 million to a company in cash and stuff like that if I'm being, above board about doing business. So that's the thing that has my eyebrows raised. You got money, right? Unless you don't have the money, unless the money is not available or the money's been spent. So.
Okay. So I will say this, just scanning it. So Ryan Wilson, as a representative of the sellers of the Gathering Spot, is suing 2 shareholders of Greenwood, which is Paul Judge and Ryan Glover. And they're doing so as a breach of fiduciary duty action against those shareholders of Greenwood. It's considered a fraudulent transfer and receipt of funds.
And essentially what he's saying.
No, you can. I was going to say, they go on to say that they did that to avoid paying contractual debts owed by Greenwood to some of those shareholders. And that's just a skim. I'm not.
Can anyone extract the numbers? Are there any numbers referenced in the if you scan it? I don't know how many pages it is, but 16. Is there any numbers referenced in it, counsel?
I mean, it's pretty. It's too long to read through right now.
Okay.
I don't see numbers, and I'm looking through. I don't see numbers.
The numbers might be redacted.
Okay.
There's several lines in here that are
allegedly the numbers.
So like bonuses totaling, it's redacted.
Isaac is saying something. I'm sorry.
I said allegedly the amount of bonuses is $5 million to the.
Wait a minute.
Which ironically is the amount of the earnout payment.
wait a minute. Wait a freaking minute. So the checks were cut to the wrong people, apparently.
Yeah, I'm saying allegedly until you guys look at that agreement, you know what I'm saying? Until you look at that, look at that lawsuit, but alleged they paid themselves $5 million in bonuses.
Oh wow. Okay.
Can I ask a question though to the council? Is any of this criminal?
At this point,
not yet, unless you can show some kind of like money laundering or some kind of insider dealing. Not yet. It's too early for that. But what I want to say is, in scheming through this document, thank you, Christo. What's telling to me is these two gentlemen allegedly got bonuses and not only did not pay Ryan and TK, but they didn't pay the employees and they didn't pay the office expenses. So what I see in these kind of cases typically is you have a guy in the middle. He goes and brings the corporate white banking institution to the table. That deal is worth millions. These guys over here to the left, Ryan and TK, while the middleman cuts out his or her $5 million, $10 million check and doesn't even care about what happens to Ryan, TK, or the gathering spot employees. And then the white people on the other end of the table, they're trusting the middleman to kind of broker everything and keep the peace. And I just think reading this complaint on quick read, that's the allegation that TK and Ryan are making, that you guys as the middleman who brought Greenwood to us and this so-called banking money, digital banking money, you paid yourselves and didn't think about us, nor our employees, which is very unfortunate if true.
I have a question, and this is more on the Greenwood side. So obviously as a member of the Gathering Spot and then just a part of the Atlanta community, I signed up for an account with Greenwood and I was put on a waiting list, right? And the call to action was, especially after what we've seen happen, the key to our community economic empowerment starts with us investing in ourselves. And so I think myself and a lot of other people were looking to open accounts based on the fact that this was a bank that was Black owned and that would be specifically catering to Black and Latino client base. And then we learned when this came out that that's not necessarily the case, that Greenwood is a part of a larger bank that is not Black owned. So it feels like it maybe not fraudulent, but it's definitely misrepresented. And
I don't know. I've covered a lot of fraud cases, and this one is it's kind of, it's a lot of fishy things going on with this one. I've covered a lot of fraud cases in federal court. I don't know this one. I don't know. Attorney Walker, you want to chime in?
Well, here's what I want to say. Crystal is alluding to two layers of fraud. There's the fraud by the defendants in the second lawsuit that Isaac Hayes III just sent to us. And then there's the fraud in we as customers of the Gathering Spot thought this was Black owned. And you cut a deal with a white institution, and now we all kind of look like Boo Boo the Fool. I think that's the overall feeling here, and that's why it's getting so much outrage across social media, because we love we love TK, and it's like, hey man, you guys were winning. Why do we need to go broker this deal here? We were winning. We could.
Let me ask you this, James, and also Brittany. So if the projections for Greenwood were made based on the fact that, again, I was on a waiting list. I was not necessarily, and I'm never, I have accounts with Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America. I've never been put on a waiting list. And then I felt like that was kind of strange. And so I decided not to do it. But I still am a member, right? And so I'm wondering, but again, my initial interest, and I know that plenty of people that have accounts there, was based on the fact that it was supposedly Black owned. And we see these people that, have a lot of community support, Killer Mike and former mayor and civil rights leader Andrew Young. So I'm assuming that some of that interest was also what attracted Ryan and TK to want to do this deal. So if that's not the case, is that fraudulent if it's misrepresented in the way that is that Greenwood was presented as a Black owned, or at least, Black institution, and then we learned this like coastal group is now it's really a part of a larger bank that is definitely not Black owned. So would Ryan and TK have an issue, be able to have an issue if the deal was based on the fact that Greenwood was supposed to be a Black institution and it really is not?
Depends if it was in writing or not. Attorney Dobbins, I would say if they represented.
That's what I was gonna say. Primarily, I kind of like to shy away from that particular argument just because we don't have the full agreement.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with mergers and acquisitions, there's a lot of due diligence most of the time that goes into it, and a lot of things are disclosed between the parties that we don't necessarily have any information on. Speaking hypothetically, if the representation were made that it was fully Black owned and none of this information was disclosed and it is truly a complete surprise, sure. Judging from the fact that the initial complaint that we were talking about earlier, not the one that was just sent, doesn't say that, I find it a little hard to believe that they didn't have any idea whatsoever. They do allude to misrepresentations in the complaint, and kind of what they thought the combination of the two parties was going to be. It was going to be this giant fintech that served, the Black community, but it's serving the community of minorities. It didn't necessarily say that they thought it was completely owned. And I think when you're dealing with pleadings and things like that, and certain things that I take those what's said and what isn't said very, to be very poignant. And the fact that that wasn't said, I feel like there may be something out there that was known that we as the the consumers just might not be aware of.
And to your point, Brittany, I would think that in doing due diligence from Ryan and TK's position, they would have looked into who they're going to bed with, and they're smart young men. They would know that Greenwood would be backed by somebody, a bank, because we know that there's another Black-owned bank in. Someone help me with it started out in Florida.
It's Citizens, right?
I don't know if it's Citizens, another one. One United. I read an article somewhere where they didn't even have $2 billion in deposits. And a lot of these bigger banks have a lot more than that. So I don't know if that can be a argument for Ryan and TK, saying that they were defrauding that way. What I see could be a possible argument is that maybe Greenwood represented that they may have had more accounts to sign up. For example, maybe 700,000-800,000 accounts. They said they have a possibility of signing up as a lure for them to do business with them. And then if they came around and find, if Ryan and TK find out later on that they only have 150,000 accounts, yeah, they may have been misled that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I did hear some discussion about that through my sources. So, counsel, if that is proven to be a fact that they were misled by way of the representation of amount of accounts they had ready to on board, could that be something that would help them with their case?
I definitely think so. Attorney Dobbins, I would definitely think if there's fraud in the inducement, as we call it, a legal terminology, yes, I would definitely think they would add that. That's why, as she said earlier, they reserve the right to amend their complaint, because they realize when they do discovery, things like that are going to come out. All kind of misrepresentations, all kind of things that were not disclosed. And I think they're going to come back and add 5 more counts to this if they can.
Exactly. Or file other claims. I mean, just skimming over the one that was just sent, it seems like something might have been discovered during, the course of this prior action, because they said that those bonuses weren't previously disclosed. So, it's new information.
So, Isaac, you have people that are waiting in the background. Do you want to bring anyone up for a question?
I don't see anybody that has their hand up right away. If anybody does have a question, you can raise your hand. I know there are probably a lot of members in here. You can just tap the hand raise button.
Let me ask Brittany a question, or Attorney Walker. The members, some of them may feel they've been bamboozled. They may feel they've been led astray. They may feel that they've been sold a bad bag of goods. Is there a potential of a class action suit?
I thought of that immediately when I read Isaac Hayes' post. I immediately thought of that, and I think it's going to be very critical that Ryan and TK get out here. I know their lawyers are advising them to have no comments because the comments can be used in court, and they don't want them to be introduced. But I think you got to do something to keep the people at bay, to keep the people from kind of getting angry in the barn house and saying, hey, we're going to do a class action, or we're going to demand all our money back. I think you have to do something. I mean, Attorney Dobbins, that's what I would be worried about if I was advising TK and Ryan right now.
I agree. I'm not going to necessarily speak to the merits of a claim like that, but I will say with the current PR and how it was introduced to their community, it's damaging. And I think that it's going to make people want to have answers, and they're going to want to have somebody to account for the things that happen or what they believed the outcome was going to be when they partnered up with Greenwood. So I do think, at some point, some PR or something's going to have to be done or said.
Yeah, it's
okay. So someone sent me a copy of I guess an internal email to the members. One of the things that stood out for me was that they were explaining the diversity in Greenwood and in the gathering spot. I don't know if either Attorney Walker or Attorney Dobbins seen that, but Isaac Hayes, have you seen it?
I've seen it. It's also been posted on all social platforms, including in LinkedIn and IG for all of the gathering spot locations, including Los Angeles. And they assert that the information that's been circulating thus far is inaccurate, and that the gathering spot is still to this date very diverse. And they even go on to show the pictures of each of the alleged executive members of the gathering spot. So it definitely was damage control. I don't know how true it is or isn't, but that definitely is out there.
This is prior to my story dropping, exposing the lawsuit. So do anyone, in a show of hands, expect another press release to come out in the next 48 hours? Can they just let it sit out there like this, not address this lawsuit, and not get in front of it? Do you guys think that that's a possibility or likelihood?
I definitely think so, but it's going to come from the lawyers because that's how we're trained as lawyers. Although this is that rare scenario where it should come from TK and Ryan. They should make the appeal to save their company if I were advising them. But I know how we're trained as lawyers. They're going to issue a very careful statement written by a good publicist or a good communicator like Crystal or you, Dennis, a good journalist. And I think these two guys are the heart of the company. And I just think you got to use them, to just get a little more leverage with a jury or with judges, anybody watching the case on the sideline.
Yeah, and the court of public opinion, because people are. I would be concerned about the members. I would say definitely my suggestion as a publicist would be to work with the attorney to craft a statement and have that statement come from Ryan and TK, because I don't think people really want to hear from anyone else, but I do think they have to work with their lawyers and communications team to create that. It is interesting because with TK no longer being a part, it was announced that, and even in that email that you referenced just now, Dennis, it was like we wish TK the best, and he's moved on, and he chose to move on. But for them to make a joint statement, I think would really show solidarity on their part, because right now it's really seen as Ryan is still a part of the company, maybe not in the same capacity, but TK is no longer a part. So for them to do a joint statement or to do a statement together, I think would really work to really calm the anxiousness and the people that probably are wanting to withdraw their membership based on the information that we learned last week.
Crystal, you're a journalist. I'm a journalist. What would be one of the first questions you would ask Ryan and TK standing at the podium about this lawsuit? What would be the first question you would ask them?
Ooh, there's a lot of questions, but I think the first would be, what was the intent? What was their intent with the Greenwood merger? Because I think that, and the questions, I've seen some of the questions coming from YouTube. People are suggesting that, yes, you're right. We're talking with 3 lawyers here who are very much like, okay, well, this wasn't said in the paperwork, but the community has no idea of what the deal, how the deals are structured. All we're listening to is the passionate press releases that were put out about this merger and how this was going to be great for the community. And so I think I would love to know what was their initial intent when they met with Ryan and Ryan Glover and Paul Judge. What was the intent, and what did they believe that the future of the Gathering Spot and Greenwood, what was this merger creating? Because I would want to know, did they know, that some of the things that we're learning now about Greenwood specifically, were they aware of that prior to their agreement?
Good question.
The question for us as litigators is, what questions do we put in our discovery? Our interrogatories, our admissions, our turnover of documents, all the requests that we make when we're doing discovery. I would be curious as to what that's going to look like. What documents are going to be turned over to prove that there was willful misconduct here, which leads to the anticipatory breach, which leads to the breach of the contract, the attorney's fees, and so on and so on. I would be curious to see how they're going to craft those questions.
Well, as you said, Attorney Walker, you would advise them not to say anything. You speak, because everything they allege is in the papaperwork. I don't see how they can get around talking about there's issues here. We didn't get already.
But I think the best case scenario is a lawyer crafts a statement from TK and Ryan. And again, we haven't seen the two of them speak together. I feel like that's key. Like, if we see solidarity on the point of from TK and Ryan, I think that's the biggest key. But if we see a statement from Ryan and silence from TK, that's going to create some unrest with their community, because the community was based really on that partnership, right? Even though both of them had different roles, I think that's going to be key to what the court of public opinion is going to say, not necessarily what's going to happen in court.
So I like this. Usher Trellis Usher said, "What did you know when you knew it?" No.
You just simplified my question. Like, what did you? What the hell?
That's like an attorney question on a trial.
I hear the concern. I just don't think that that's something we're going to get up front anytime soon, just because it is a house divided. You've got litigation going on with the former, owners and against Greenwood. Then you've got, shareholder issues going on with Greenwood. And then you've got a termination issue, which we don't know what the parameters are around that, if there was a severance or if he can and cannot speak.
Well, here's the strategy, Attorney Dobbins. If I were advising TK and Ryan day one, somehow, some way, I can't reveal how we would do it publicly, but there would be a mutiny on the part of the members if you don't either pay our founders or give the company back to them. There would just be somehow, Ryan and TK know enough of the membership where that could flourish without them.
Absolutely.
You understand what I mean?
Sure. And I will say this, but those are two different separate fields. So, if we're talking about the strategy behind the litigation, I see that as well. It's absolutely intended to sort of divide the house to, maybe get the company back because you're not going to have any success with it. I see that very clearly. However, in terms of what communication the public is going to get in this particular moment in time and what clarity they're going to get regarding that strategy, I think is very little. And that's kind of the point I was speaking on. I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to say because of the particular strategy.
I was addressing Crystal's point of earlier of like what they could do jointly together.
I see Isaac, I see someone else joined in. He has a question, Isaac.
Yeah, Duran Davis on stage. He has a question.
Oh,
Duran, you there?
Durant, unmute your mic.
Yes, I'm here. I was just listening and waiting for Mr. Byron to finish with the panelists. First of all, Mr. Dennis, you pulled off a successful simulcast. I see your YouTube; it's been pretty fluent. In addition to your fan base audio room, so kudos to that. And thanks, Miss Jordan, Mr. Walker, and attorney Miss Dobbins as well for all of the input. So my question is two-part. I'll assure that it's really quick. One on the security side. Do you attorneys, and this is pure speculation, so I'll set a disclaimer for you guys. Do you all anticipate that the gathering spot team may perhaps go past Greenwood and attempt to pierce the veil and go to the parent company as far as the shares are concerned? Meaning, hey, you guys owe us $5 million in value. In fact, we don't want the $5 million in cash. We want the equitable value of what you guys were supposed to pay me. And because you're the parent company, we're going to hold you responsible. We're going to hold your subsidiary. We're holding you responsible because of your subsidiary didn't pay us our capital. So we want to get equity inside of this organization. So that's the first question, and then I'll ask the second one after you guys chime in on that one.
When I first read the complaint, sir, and I didn't catch his name, Dennis.
It is
Duran.
Mr. Duran. When I first read the complaint, I only saw one defendant, Greenwood, and I wondered for a moment there why wasn't Judge name, why wasn't Glover name, why wasn't the parent company name? Like usually when we're filing, we'll have 10, 12, 15 defendants. If we're suing a record label, an artist or songwriter or producer, we kind of name everybody because the ideal and the concept is either you're directly liable or you're indirectly liable or you're vicariously liable or you got some kind of connection to the case. And I usually find the more parties we have, the more likelihood they're going to get together and say, hey, we need to settle this if we all got to write checks. So I was surprised that a lot more defendants weren't named. And I was looking through the complaint trying to see, was there any way you could link Mr. Judge or Mr. Glover or any of the other defendants, alleged defendants or parties to the defendant's side of the table. And I just don't know enough about it. And I think Attorney Dobbins would agree. We don't know enough of the fact set to know how you can name.
But one of the things that I did notice in the pleadings was that the prior unit holders invested in Greenwood. It doesn't go into any detail, and I don't know specifically what that means, but my assumption is that they acquired shares of Greenwood, and so they might not want to include the other shareholders in the initial litigation that we were reviewing earlier because it creates a conflict of interest.
The initial litigation and the possibility of an amended complaint. There's a possibility that it could be amended. Right?
Yeah, it's pretty murky. It sounds like cross collateralization of shares between LLC members of interest. Yes, interesting. So I appreciate that. It's a very thorough answer. And Attorney Walker, your thoughts are pretty consistent in mine, although it's led by speculation. But I was kind of thinking about that, an analysis of the corporate governance. But as you stated before, there may be more things to come out as the case progresses. So the second question is more on the branding side. In the event that the Ryan and PK suggested, hey, we don't even want the rest of those assets as far as the gathering spot is concerned, but we do want our bread and butter. That's the Georgia location. I know because I live in LA and I'm frequenting the gathering spot in LA all the time, and it looks alive and well. But do you all anticipate that there may be a scenario by which they say, hey, we're going to make those LLCs and they could be subsidiaries of the primary entity, or you guys can keep those? We're going to keep the Georgia spot and we're going to keep the name, and we will have a naming rights agreement for the rest of the locations, but we want nothing to do with the operations. That was my last question, by the way. And thanks, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you.
You're muted.
I was saying, I love your question, Mr. Duran, but if I'm Ryan and I'm TK or counsel to them, we're keeping the three together. There's power. There's 12,000 members. I just don't see how that would be in my client's best interest by any way or means. And again, those two guys are the heart of the whole company. They are the face, the brand, the everything. I just don't know how you do it. I just don't know. I mean, Attorney Dobbins, I don't know how you could do that.
I don't see it being a benefit, so I actually don't think it would be anything I would advise either. Even if it were possible, I just don't think based on what they've built and the nature of that expansion in and of itself, it would be lucrative for them to then try to divide it to keep piece or whatever the scenario might be. I just don't think it's worth it.
You spoke earlier, Councilman Walker, about mutiny. You spoke about mutiny. Well, the fact that these lawsuits are filed, it is triggering a lot of reaction with the members. So while they can't make public statements, again, the pleadings is telling. And I always like to read the pleadings because I want to know what is alleged and what can be proven. And how far-fetched is a lawsuit? We learned, Brittany, from just covering the Tasha Cardi B lawsuit, that it was a lot that came out at trial that didn't mirror what was being said online.
Was that your question?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess my question is, have they effectively communicated to the members their position? TK and Ryan.
No. They should have saw this outrage coming from social media and from their membership before the lawsuit was filed. And someone should have said, we got to do a little damage control here, because if we get the company back, or if we keep the company, we don't want to lose money either way.
Yeah.
If we keep the company, we don't want the membership to dip 20-30%, because people are blowing up my phone right now saying, I'm wondering if I should stay a part of this.
Me too.
From LA to DC to Georgia, my phone is being blown up. Someone should have foreseen this, said, hey, we're going to have a meeting with the membership, or put a statement out, or let another faction handle the media of it. You know, pull in an inner circle of friends and say, we're going through some problems, we can't discuss it, but something's about to go down. Someone has to manage it, because you lose money either way.
They didn't anticipate a reporter or multiple reporters picking up on this story. They weren't prepared, and I'm going to say from the Greenwood side, to address this, even looking at what was put out less than 48 hours ago to the members. So who's going to tell us there's a lawsuit? Who's going to tell the members that there is a problem with the family? The reporter, or should they have revealed this?
It should have been internal. I mean, I agree with James. Like, there's no way that, because a big part, there's two things in business. You have to deal with the legalities, and you have to deal with your customers, right? And the customers are going based on what they see on social media. They are connected to the gathering spot because of an emotional connection, or a connection with wanting to support, number one, the community, and then also, like I said, these two young, bright, African American men who have been featured on Steve Harvey and Best Fest. I mean, they're celebrated. So it's a personal connection that has made this business work. So even though I can't believe that they didn't foresee this coming, because everything that is announced always goes to social media. I mean, you see the information, the gathering spot, the tagline is, we're connected, we're where we gather. There's no way that this should have been allowed to be introduced this way without there being a crisis communication plan for it.
Exactly. Totally agree. And I'm frankly surprised, because up until now, the gathering spot has made all the right moves. From PR marketing standpoint, they've always made the right moves. So I am surprised that this wasn't better thought out. But outside of that, I applaud them for standing up if what they allege in their complaint is true. I think, to your question, Dennis, they have made a strong case, which the most difficult one of all is that anticipatory breach charge. I think it's number 4 or 5 in the complaint. That's a hard one, because you have to show willfulness. You have to show some intentionality. The breach of the contract is easy. You owed me money, you didn't pay me. Now we get into the merits of fact finding and discovery to figure out, was something due? Was it willful, or was the intentional not to pay me? But they have made a good case in the complaint so far, based on what we know, and we don't know everything.
They need to get that trust from the community, because people are concerned about the intent and the authenticity because of what has been revealed about Greenwood through this case. So that's the only reason that we're now aware that Greenwood is not necessarily what it was represented to us in the PR passionate pleas. So that's an issue.
I have a question for Attorney Dobbins. I know I'm not allowed to ask questions, co-counsel.
You're allowed, counsel.
But I want to ask, because this strikes my mind. You go to the gathering spot because it's a vibe. You know, one of my clients has the Breakfast Boys. It's a vibe. Some people go to breakfast at Barney's. It's a vibe. You go to the gathering spot because it's a vibe. So my question is, did we move too quick in filing this lawsuit? Payment was due February. Lawsuit was filed within days, I think, of the payment due.
Yeah, it was. I don't think they moved too quickly, just by the nature, at least my experience with breach of contract. You don't want to sit on it. Since we haven't seen the contract, I don't know if there's cure language. Based on how quickly the suit was filed, it doesn't seem like there's any. Exactly. So because of that, I feel like, you know, they needed to move quickly so that it's not, you know, a question of unclean hands or acquiescing to the time frame or allowing it to exist. So I think, and that's another reason why I actually think that there hasn't been a lot of communication that comes out, because, you know, you're dealing with a shift in title. You know, they're former owners of the gathering spot. They're no longer the current leadership, and the current leadership is having a problem with a new owner. And so it's not like they can just come out and make a statement on behalf of the gathering spot because they don't own it. They're employees now. And so I think people need to realize that you're no longer looking at them as the leadership, and like, why wouldn't you come out with a joint statement and let us know all these things are happening, because it's not their company anymore. That was Greenwood's responsibility. And if you keep, you know, you kind of have to keep in mind where each piece is. Greenwood's sued. Greenwood's the one who's being questioned. So, you know, they're not necessarily going to come out ahead of this and let everybody know, even if it is a bad PR, you know, they might want to see how people react before they come out with a statement. And they came out with one and we weren't satisfied with it. But, you know, Greenwood as the owner tried to let us know, hey, we're still diverse. And now we're just like, I'm not so sure about it.
Yeah.
This message keep popping up on my screen. Who's doing this? You know, I'm sorry, guys. I want to bring in my other guest, Rick Math. Rick Math is it? I'm sorry.
It's your echo.
I'm sorry. I want to bring in my other guest, Rick Mathis, who is also a former member of the Gathering Spot, a noted filmmaker, and someone he's actually one of the people that introduced me to the Gathering Spot, along with Isaac Hayes and a few others. But Rick, how are you today?
Man, I am terribly disturbed. As a founding member of the Gathering Spot, it is very disturbing to see what's happening to such an amazing place. You know, as a filmmaker, I edited one of my projects at the Gathering Spot. As a filmmaker, my new project, I was making plans to screen B1 with Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Gathering Spot because, like Attorney Walker said, it's a vibe. It's the one place in Atlanta that you can frequent where you can see people that are movers and shakers in Atlanta that's doing things. You can go there to work. You can go there to eat. You can go there to have a drink. You can go there to screen a movie. So it's very disheartening, you know, as a founding member to see, you know, what's going on. And the biggest issue, too, that I have is you have Greenwood, which is fronted as a Black-owned company, and you have the Gathering Spot, which is fronted which is a Black-owned company. And you have two Black companies, and what this does for the Black community is it says that Black people can't do business together. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the things that's very disheartening to me. And from listening to what's been said, it all appears to be from a sense of greed. You know what I'm saying? So if you have, you know, owners getting bonus payments when they really don't deserve a bonus payment, and the people who should have received a bonus payment or a payment, which isn't a bonus, just a payment, you know, is very, very disturbing. So, I mean, I'm just really disturbed as a founding member that we didn't get it right this time, and we end up in the Fulton County Courthouse because we didn't get it right. And it's like a smoke bomb that goes off in the Black community where you have people say, see, I told you I can't do business with a Black person. And that's not true. because several Black-owned businesses are doing businesses and they are doing business together, and they are operating in Black excellence. So that's what we still have to say. So I see the comment that's popping up with, cancel your membership and support TK. I get that, but at the same time, I don't want to move too fast, because what if these gentlemen do get their business back? You know what I'm saying? Then what do? You reinstate your membership?
I think
So
that's why
it's just very disturbing.
But I think, Rick, to your point, that's why we need a statement from Ryan and TK, because people are saying even in the comments.
Like Brittany alluded to early on, is sell this before you go to trial. Sell it, get it settled. There's a lot at stake. The stakes are pretty high. But it looks like one side has covered themselves financially, where the other side is pushing a rock up a hill. I don't know.
Dennis, I don't think this will ever go to trial. I don't think it will ever go to trial. I think it will definitely settle. How it will settle, only God knows, but I see them going into mediation and figure this out. You can't go to trial. It would kill the company. A trial could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows how long. You would kill 12,000 members. Just look at the damage in the last 48 hours. So the lawyers on both sides got to lay down their swords, get in a room together, and figure this out. And those of us who litigate, we've done it. We've done it before. It can be done. You just got to set down your egos, go in a room and say, we got an entity here that does $3 million a month, $36 million a year, assuming 12,000 people are paying $250. If we're doing that kind of money and we can't figure out how to get this settled, then we don't need to be practicing law. We don't even need to be representing you, because we should be able to walk in a room and say, we got to save these companies. We got to save these locations and add more. If that's parting ways, let's part ways. If that's a mutual apology and we're going to get this right on behalf of the members and the Black folks, as Mr. Mathis alluded to, then we do that. But you cannot allow this to go to trial, no matter how bad you want to litigate it as a lawyer, because that's the dilemma. The lawyer wants to litigate it and sometimes puts that interest over the client's interest. In this situation, you have to, as all times, put the client interest first and get this settled.
Ms. Dobbins, if you had to craft a solution for your client, and this is hypothetical, obviously you're not part of the lawsuit, but Mr. Wilson and other plaintiffs, what would be your suggestion on how to craft a resolution, assuming they hadn't, they had fulfilled their part of the agreement? How would you bring this to an end? How do we get to an end where everyone can win?
I mean, first off, I want to say that's a very large hypothetical, because I don't know what they want. I don't know what the plaintiffs necessarily want. So,
they want their money.
Well, no, but I'm saying do they want their company back? We have no idea. We're not in the room. We have that's what we're saying in this conversation right now, but we don't know what their ultimate goal is. In terms of just the payments being made, I agree with, Attorney Walker. Everybody needs to let their egos go. They need to get in a mediation, and they need to talk about if Greenwood really believes that there are some adjustments that need to be made, we need to sit down and talk about what they are and get the payments made so that we can move forward, and not continue to have this PR nightmare and this breakdown. So, that's the best I can give you at this point. I know everybody would like to see, the Gathering Spot go back in time and maybe not, join forces with Greenwood, but that's our opinion. There are a lot of other things that are on the table and facts that we just don't have, the foresight of. And so, with that in mind, I would say just looking at what's on the table, get them paid, and let's move forward so that the company doesn't collapse.
Dennis, can I say, Dennis?
Yes, sir.
You hear me?
Yes.
As someone who settles, cases like this all the time, to me, this would be a simple conversation with 4 steps. 1, we first figure out the $5 million. If it's in fact owed, we get that paid. 2, we figure out what was paid by Greenwood under the cash purchase, the stock purchase, and all that other stuff, and we deal with that number. 3, we cut a number every month to Greenwood. So let's say Greenwood put up $30 million. to have them do this expansion. And some money went into everybody's pocket, as usually happens. We figure out what that number was, and we say to Greenwood, okay, we're going to bid you a due. We're going to acknowledge you gave us 30 million. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical number, but 10 million, 5 million, 30 million, whatever they put up to help us expand, we cannot deny it helped us expand, if is the case, right? So we figure out that number, we give them a monthly royalty or monthly payment, and then we issue a joint statement and keep it moving. Because at the end of the day, Ryan and TK has to tell Greenwood, our members don't want you. They want us. And if our members want us, we have to figure out how to get rid of you to keep our company alive. And if you say you put up so many millions, let's figure out a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan to give you your money back and maybe a little interest on top after you pay the 5 million and keep it moving and get out of an expensive litigation that when we do these kind of cases, both sides are going to spend $1 million to $2 million, bare minimum on both sides, bare minimum. That's what typically happens when we have these kind of cases.
I think that's a very clean way of doing it. I think, Crystal, I would ask you, do you think it's too far out there at this point to appease the members that have already made an exodus?
I think that this is, it's funny because what Attorney Dobbins said a minute ago, I think is really true. I think that there's really not much the members can do. A lot of members are upset because they're like, we love Ryan and TK, but in the reality, Ryan and TK no longer own the Gathering Spot anyway. And I think people just really didn't pay attention to that merger and what that really meant. I think what caused this public outrage is the fact that TK was no longer affiliated with Greenwood in title, right? So and affiliated with the Gathering Spot in title. He was actually made VP for Greenwood, and then he's no longer in that position. For me, I think that the members have to understand that this is something that Ryan and TK were okay with. And if the money if they had received the payout, then all this could have been happening anyway. TK could really, it really may not be a situation where he's unhappy. It could be that he wanted his payout and he wanted to move on. That's something that we have to acknowledge as well. We just don't know enough information, which is why we need something said from them. I do think that this is going to cause, for me, looking at it from a public relations perspective, this is a nightmare because, again, this company was built based on the fact that people really were becoming, as we would say, woke or very active in trying to support Black businesses, specifically young Black businesses that had a mission statement of really being about their community. And for them to make this move and then to work this way, I think that they've lost the trust of a lot of the members. And then when you add on to it the compromise situation of what's going on with Greenwood and what that means, I think that this is something that needs a crisis plan, but I think the reality is you've really lost a lot of the trust and loyalty from your members just with the way this is rolled out.
Isaac Hayes.
Yes, sir.
You've listened to our guests.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to the what if scenarios. What is your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, I think businesses, let's not disagree on the fact that businesses are built to be sold. Whether or not we would want Ryan and TK to stay at the Gathering Spot or not, if they made the decision to sell their company and all business went through as it was supposed to, that would be totally fine, and we would still continue to support Ryan and TK in their ventures. You know what I'm saying? So that's not an issue. I think the issue is two gentlemen that have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building a company from 2016 to now, and wanted an exit for themselves and their investors, and they did not get that. And so for that reason, that is the outrage I think that a lot of people are feeling. I mean, you don't want your favorite company to go away. You don't want I would not want the Gathering Spot to be anything different than what it was. But if they decided to sell the company, then they decided to sell the company. And I think all the members have to live with that. I think what taints the situation is a lot of the tech community and their feelings about one of the owners of Greenwood and his reputation in the city. And so that is what kind of turned people off. Let me ask the attorneys this question: Is the best way to support Ryan and TK to do what I did, which was cancel my membership, or is it to keep the membership in support of them in hopes that they figure this out and get this settled, and then the gathering spot returns to them? What's the best way to support Ryan and TK in this matter? Because we don't want to all just leave the gathering spot and then damage the business beyond repair, make it not have any value. But we want to support, two young Black men.
My best scenario is we don't abandon them. We don't cancel the membership too fast, that we wait and give them a certain time frame to issue a statement and tell us what's going on, that the membership and those kind of well-known members issue the call, issue the plea, like, hey, we need to hear from you guys. We need to know what's going on, and we need to know ASAP. And if you can't let us know, then yes, in 5 to 7 business days, we have to cancel. At least give them the opportunity to come forward and tell us what's going on and what their intentions are with this lawsuit. Is it to stay aboard, keep the company, retain ownership, or return to ownership? Because Attorney Dobbins alludes to the fact that they're not owners anymore, they're employees. Mm-hmm. So they need to come forward and tell us, so we as friends, members, whatever, can decide if we're going to stay aboard or if we're going to bounce. But you're correct, Isaac. We don't want to just quit and the company goes down, totally downhill, because everybody pulled out their membership. Again, I go back to those settlements that if they just sit down and mediate this thing, they should be able to wrap this up in 30 days or less.
So Erica says, I'm not canceling my membership at all. I am standing. Erica, I would invite you onto the platform for you to explain why you feel like standing is the best option. If you are interested in coming up, Erica Hawks, put a 1 in the chat. Isaac, if you have any other guests that want to get up, come on the platform. This is your time. You've been listening there. You got over 130, 40 or more listening on Fanbase. This is your opportunity to ask these brilliant minds included, a question as it relates to this very late breaking story. Do not DM me later on and say, I had a question, because I might not answer. You have attorney Brittany Dobbins, you have attorney Walker, you have Crystal Jordan, you have Dennis Byron. Bring it to us, guys. Bring it to us. What do you got? If
anybody wants to ask a question that's in the audience, I don't see any hands raised, but if I do, I will let you know and bring those individuals up if I do. Again, I think people just having an understanding of what's going on and getting a clear picture of what has transpired between Greenwood and the gathering spot is enough for a lot of people.
Do you feel that your questions and or concerns have been answered, or do you have a better understanding of what this lawsuit is about? And should we do a part 2?
I think I'm pretty sure you'll do an excellent job of covering, what's going on. I just said, what I needed to say about TK not being there, and again, I would want to say that TK was let go of that company.
Isaac, talk closer to your mic, please.
I would want to say that TK was let go from the company without cause. So the way that press release went out is just saying as if he decided to leave, which is not true. Him and Ryan have built that company from the ground up. So I don't think one would leave without the other. So the situation that transpired is just something that I know that TK was not. He was not planning to leave the company in that fashion.
Okay, so
that's good to know, Isaac. Thank you for sharing.
He didn't resign. That's
that's really good to know.
That's good to know. He didn't resign. And
I want to say real quick, Dennis, I know that Attorney Walker has to leave. First of all, thank you so much, Attorney Walker, for joining. We know you're in the middle of family activities, but agreed to join to represent the community and to give us some insight along with Attorney Dobbins. So I want to make sure that people have. Can we put Attorney Walker's Instagram in the chat in case people want to follow him on social media? He's like I said, one of the best here that I know in this region, or just period, actually, with entertainment law. So please, please make sure that you follow him at James Walker Jr. Esquire ESQ. So at James Walker Jr. ESQ, and then also Attorney Dobbins has to leave as well. And I believe we have her her Instagram up as well, because to make sure that people are following her for information. Also, she is
let's
also
put it out for everybody listening as well. Attorney Dobbins, your Instagram handle, please.
It should be up, but it's B Dobbins ESQ.
B Dobbins
ESQ
on Instagram, and I guess across all platforms. Counselors, thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate you taking the time. Please forward all invoices to Crystal. And
just gonna ask. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. No, on a serious note, thank you for having us. This is a case that's sincere to my heart. Only reason I would work on a Sunday, because I really feel the Gathering Spot is something special. I was there on opening night. I count Ryan and TK as friends. And, you know, I'm here. I'm here voluntarily if they need me to just volunteer and help them mediate it, because that's what we do. We do high-profile cases, get them settled. They should not take this to trial. I want that to be my closing point, that this should not go to trial. This should be settled, I would say, in 20 or 30 days at most, because your company's hemorrhaging. And if it's about the money, you lose money if the company hemorrhages. Just that simple. So thank you all. Attorney Dobbins, pleasure to meet you.
You as well.
Isaac Hayes, you know how I feel about you, brother, and the work that you do.
Ms. Dobbins, closing words.
Oh, just thank you for having me. I pretty much agree with, Attorney Walker on the fact that it should be closed up. I think it'll be interesting to see if we get to a ruling on the summary judgment, or if some settlement will be reached prior to that. Strategically, generally, that is, it either comes before the summary judgment ruling or shortly after. So I'll be interested in watching to see what happens, and looking forward to possibly coming in a part 2 to continue talking about that.
Explain to them, Attorney Dobbins, what summary judgment is.
Summary judgment basically is where the parties present all of the facts that they have currently, and the court determines if there's a question of fact that needs to go to the jury. Right now, they're in a position where the plaintiffs are saying there are no questions for the jury. These are all contract interpretation issues that can be answered by the judge. Therefore, you should rule in, our favor. And so we're waiting to see how the court takes that issue and if the case will move forward to trial or not.
It is usually only happens about 10% of the time for plaintiffs
Mm-hmm.
to try to get a summary judgment. A court wants to give a defendant their day, so it's very hard to get one pushed through, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, counsel, thank you. I want to close the show up, but you guys know how to reach both parties, as well as myself and Ms. Jordan. And I see Rick is still in the building. Let me see if Rick is still around. Rick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I just want to say thank you for, allowing me to have the opportunity to, to share my thoughts as a founding member. And I hope it gets resolved. I mean, we need the Gathering Spot. It is a vibe. It is a place for Black entrepreneurs. And we need that in the Atlanta community, so those are my closing arguments, or my closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. And they can follow you as well on social media at
Rick Mathis, at Rick Mathis, RICMATHIS.
And what is the name of your film?
So we have a new film coming called B1. B1, the movie. It's a film featuring that I partnered with Dr. Boyce Watkins, but it features everybody from Dr. Claude Anderson to D1 to who else we have on there? Queen of Four. We have a host of people on there, man. It's an all-star cast. I always say it's the Coming to America cast for B1. So yeah, we'll be premiering that film in August, kicking off August 17th, and premiering the film on August 19th at the New Black Wall Street here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you joining the show, and we'll be looking out for your film.
Yeah, thanks.
Crystal, any final words?
I think what you said earlier is a great way to close out. No one wins when the family feuds. And I think, I hope this can be resolved in a way that restores faith, especially amongst us. That it's hard to see us fighting each other. So, I mean, it's also a part of life. Like Isaac said, we know that companies do create business and become successful and with the goal of selling. But I think it's discouraging to see um, an amazing Black company feuding and accusing another company that's Black somewhat of trying to be fraudulent in some ways. So I hope it's resolved, and I hope we can move forward. But I also hope that the truth prevails.
Isaac,
Yes, sir.
final words.
I mean, thank you to you, Dennis, really for providing, clarity. I'm a person that loves facts. I didn't want this to be like a room of gossip and innuendo. You guys definitely shed a lot of light and informed me, and I'm pretty much sure everybody that's been listening about what is going on with the gathering spot. And so people have decisions to make. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in here on Fanbase. And, I think if you guys get a chance to go through that second lawsuit, and if there's some more clarity, I know Dennis, you'll do that. You guys want to break that down at another point and explain that payout situation. Let's do that as well, because that is a whole separate matter that I think people want to know, and it sheds a lot of light on what's going on with the fact that Ryan and TK were not paid. So, I'm always here. This is what Fanbase is for, to have conversation, discourse. So I just appreciate everybody tuning in.
And I want to say, Isaac, thank you for providing this platform, because we see the bickering, the potential of a Coliseum style fight with Zuck and Elon, and while they fighting over here, this is the opportunity for to pull some more folks over here.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not worried about that. It's
Which is I
said, we're not. I'm not in it for that. I'm in it for, us to be able to continue to democratize distribution of content for every single person on the planet if they want to monetize, in a place where you can be yourself without limits. We're not here to suppress content. We're not here to tell people who they can and cannot be. And that's why I founded the company. So we'll continue to do what we do. And there's enough room for everybody. There honestly is. There's enough room for everybody. So I'm just happy to be a voice and a vessel for people that want to use Fanbase in the way that it's designed to be used.
Absolutely. And again, for those who are following me or who are not following me on Fanbase that are in this audio room, make sure you follow me, because we are going to do a part 2, and we might be able to get someone that is a part of this lawsuit to maybe talk. Maybe they want to release a statement on Fanbase. Who knows? They can reach out to, obviously, Isaac, myself, and I've reached out to Ryan Glover for a comment. I have yet to receive a response. But guy, if you're watching this, Ryan, I have your email address as part of the lawsuit, so I might send you an email and everyone else on that email chain, just to make sure you got it. But but I hit you on Instagram. But in any event, guys, make sure you follow me. I apparently you guys don't have any questions on that side. I do see some questions coming on this side. And Ashley Lassiter, she's been dropping a few comments from College Hill, original College Hill.
Oh,
and
wow. Hey,
the original College Hill. She's in the comment section as well. Saptosa Foster, the legendary Saptosa Foster.
Hey.
I see some celebrities pulling up, Isaac, on my side. I see Janae Bolden on. And why Janae didn't pull up? And that's the celebrity. We got celebrities all over the place. This is incredible. They're all on Fanbase. This is great. It's a beautiful thing. I love the fact that you guys are here, and it's great to even join the conversation, because people need to know. You got some powerful people watching on Fanbase, and hopefully this message will get out to those who weren't able to join. So hi, Janae, I see you there. Ashley, I see a bunch of people. I don't want to just shout everyone out. This is a great show. Courtney, I see you. If there's a part 2, follow me on Twitter. I will be tweeting out a part 2, and I think it will be a part 2 based on this document I'm looking at. Looking pretty incredible. This is going to be a part 2, guys. This is going to be a part 2, and I'll just say very soon. Crystal, any final words? Because we're about to take it out.
No, I appreciate it's good to see so many people in our community involved and wanting to get the information. So shouts out to everybody that's spending a Sunday afternoon listening to this.
Yes. And on YouTube, we're gonna go over here to a fan base. YouTube, that's all you're getting about time. We're going on the fan base. I'm not gonna leave fan base right now. But we YouTube, thank you for joining us. You can hit the replay committee. You can go ahead and replay this. We're not taking this down. We're not going anywhere. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. And we're out, YouTube. We are out. Let me just turn this music on real quick, guys.